All right, hello, fellow coder. Welcome back to this next lesson in our FreshVotes series, where we are building a Java web app from scratch, leveraging technologies like Spring Boot and more. So in this particular lesson, we are going to dive into some more of the real meat and potatoes of the quote-unquote business logic. Okay, we're not going to be messing around too much more with the look and feel of things, like we were adding previously. We're adding the header, and we were making buttons and doing all this stuff. So now I want to talk about the fact that we have products that we've created. We've named them, right? And with these products, we can then have users of those products go in and leave feedback in terms of what they would like to see, right? That's the whole point of FreshVotes, is to be able to make suggestions to product owners as to what you would like to see in those products, and then have the community vote on whether or not they like that suggestion or not. So essentially it's like feature requests and then voting, upvoting, downvoting, that kind of thing. So you've done the first step, which is let's put a product out there. But the next step is, as a user of a product, I need to be able to, one, create a feature request type of thing, and then two, be able to upvote, downvote those things. So how do we do that? So we need to be able to see these products as a visitor. So if I click on the product, you see that we have product IDs. So the first thing I think about is, okay, as a user who is not the owner of the product, but rather a user of a particular product, for example, product number one, what features would or how should I be able to leave feature requests and look at the feature requests that already exist and be able to upvote, downvote, that kind of thing. So you need a good URL structure, right? So in other words, this sort of needs to change. This, first localhost 8080, that will change once we get it up and running on freshvotes.com. That'll be later on in our series. I'll show you how to set that up. But moreover, we have this endpoint. This is the products/product ID endpoint is what I call it. Or rather, I think what it's called. So I call it endpoint, but this is essentially an endpoint. It's a URL structure that means something in the application. It means something because we have a controller, a product controller to be specific, that looks at that endpoint, right? It looks at products/product ID, both for getting and posting requests. So that means something, product/product ID. So now we need to think about what is another URL structure, another endpoint that we can map out and create that means something to a user, right? So should this be localhost 8080/users/ and then a product name or product ID or something? So this is where we need to put our thinking caps on and make some design decisions. So typically when it comes to URL endpoints like the one up here, usually we have the object that we are, or rather the entity that we're messing around with, and we pluralize it. So we have products, right? And the reason why I chose products is because we are messing around with our product, where is it? Product entity, right? This is an entity that stores a product name, a user who created it, and features. So there's meaning behind the name that I chose. So maybe the fact that we have features here could be part of the structure. And the reason why I'm sort of going through this, I haven't thought about this yet. Okay, this is literally what you're hearing is me in the process my brain goes through to make these kinds of decisions. Okay, some people love it, some people hate it. If you hate it, you can always stop watching. If you love it, obviously continue to watch. So the feature is essentially what I'm talking about, right? The feature is something that the users of the product will be requesting and creating, right? So maybe inherently if we have a products/product ID/features endpoint, that automatically means we have a user. A user is going in and creating this. So that's kind of cool. I don't mind that. And that kind of follows the structure of what is the sort of norm, the the proper way to create these kinds of structures. Because really what we're doing here is a user is creating a feature request, right? And what is a feature request? Well, it's just going to be a feature entity. Okay, there's a feature database table, and there's a relationship between a feature and a product, specifically a one-to-many relationship that we've already mapped out in our database, right? A product has many features, and any one given feature can be mapped to one and only one product. Okay, so that means a one-to-many relationship. If this was many products on this side, then it would be a many-to-many relationship. In other words, one product maps to many features, and any one feature can be mapped to many products. But that's not what we have. We have one product maps to many features, and any of those features that are mapped, if you pick one, it maps back to one and only one product. That is a one-to-many relationship, and that is what we have created in our Java entities here, our Java classes. So, yeah, I think, if we think about URL structures, you have your, root domain, whatever that is, .com / I guess we can say FreshVotes.com, because that is the URL that I'm going to be using, /products / a product ID / features, right? So this would be a, post to that endpoint, which would mean create a feature. Well, I guess it's like create a feature request, right? We're creating a feature entity and putting it into our database. So that's probably what we're going to be handling in this video. Then there's also a get request to that same endpoint, which will be freshvotes.com / product / product ID / features. Actually, it's not the same endpoint because it's going to be /feature ID, right? And that's going to be get a feature or whatever, right? So that is the convention that we use with respect to URLs and whatnot, right? We purposely have this structure here, the product here and the feature here, because a product contains a feature, right? That's why we have all of this on the same URL, just like up here, right? That's why I did not create an endpoint that was freshvotes.com / features / whatever, feature ID, right? So there's a reason why I did not choose this URL structure, because, like I said, a product has a feature or many features, right? There's a relationship there, and that relationship is being reflected as part of the URL structure itself. Okay, so just to point that out, that's the reason why I'm doing this. Okay, so now let's see what we can do in terms of getting down and dirty with creating this actual endpoint. So what that means is we need a controller, right? A controller is what listens to an HTTP request, either a get, a post, a put, a delete, or whatever. It listens for an HTTP request and then maps that request to a Java method, okay? A particular request, a particular URL structure. So the particular URL structure that we're interested in is this one as a post request. A post request to this endpoint will mean something. It will mean create a new feature in our database, okay? So let's create a feature controller, right? We had a product controller, now we have a feature controller. And I'm going to go so far as to say whenever we're using a feature controller, it should already be mapped into a product and a product ID and features, right? That is always going to be the case in terms of the URL structure. I'm hard coding it right here because I want that to be hard coded. I want to force myself to use this endpoint for any calls to the feature controller, because this is what we've established is the proper way to do it, right? That's the convention that's used. So inside of here, we will have a post mapping, and the post mapping will be for the /endpoint. Now, why did I choose /endpoint? Am I choosing to go to the root here? Is this the root, back to the root call, like freshvotes.com? If I do a post to that, then I'm going to be in here? No, it's going to use this as the parent first, and then this is going to be the sort of child. So in other words, when I'm saying slash here, really what this ends up mapping to is this endpoint plus the slash, right? So I could even really just have nothing here, right? Because this URL and this URL are equivalent pretty much. So that's what that maps to. So I'll say map, this maps to blah, right? Okay, so public string, and this is create feature, essentially, is what we're doing. And we'll see if I need to pass anything into this as a parameter. I don't know yet, so we'll see. And then this needs to essentially return a view, right? The view that we're returning here, since I'm saying return a string, when they create a feature, it should probably return a feature view saying like, okay, when I click the create a feature request button, it's going to create a feature request and it's going to return a view that allows you to populate the feature request with something, right? So some sort of an HTML view. So we'll have to create some sort of an HTML view. Let me create that for now as a blank file. We'll call this feature.html. And let's copy it from product.html. Okay, so we'll make a feature kind of, and we'll kind of make it kind of look like a product. FreshVotes feature. That's what we'll say. Container. We'll say if feature is not null. Well, feature should always not be null. So let's get rid of that, and then we'll call this feature. Say new feature, and then we'll have a post. Here, I'm not sure of what we'll have inside, but for now, let's just do this. Let's have new feature. That way we have some sort of a placeholder of an HTML page that we can see when we click on the create feature button or feature request button. And then this essentially will say, okay, return what? Well, we want to return that view that I just created. We want to return feature, right? And really what we want to do is, if this is truly a post mapping, we want to actually create a feature. So we want to say feature equals new feature, okay? Because feature is a Java object that we've created. Specifically, it is an entity, okay? It's a special type of Java object. An entity is a reflection of a database table, okay? So this feature is a database table because we've specified it as having the entity, what is this called? Annotation. Okay, so this feature object represents a database table. And everything, all the setters inside of this, so set, description, ID, product, these are all the columns in that database. Okay, we never set an ID explicitly. The ID is set for us. That's how we designed our database. It automatically assigns an ID. So the rest of the stuff is what we care about. Title, status, product, and description. So what does all this mean? Well, first of all, set product, this is the relationship. This is part of the relationship. A feature belongs to a product, always. So this is a very important part, and we need to get this right. And this is where we can leverage this part of the URL structure. Since I'm passing a product ID in, I know what product this feature belongs to. So let's do that. Let's use that code and let's do something with it. So in order to actually read this in as a variable, I need to have it passed into my method parameter list here. So we need to use something called, oh shoot, this is funny. It's path, there you go. I was going to forget the name. It's @path variable, and it's a long. I know it's a long because I typically use longs whenever I'm using IDs, but I can double check that by going back to the product.java file. And here's the ID. So it's a long. So there we go. We're good. So there we go. Now we have a product ID, and we can use this product ID when we come in to load the product from the database. Okay. So typically we would do this inside of a service. Do I have some services? Yeah, I should probably do it the right way, obviously. So let's have a service. Let's create a new service called, how am I doing on time? Ooh, it's already 15 minutes. So I'll do just a little bit more. So we'll create a feature service just to be create structure of my code. I don't want to create bad code and give you bad habits. So automatically, I always remember to immediately, whenever I have services, controllers, or repositories, you need to annotate the top. Well, repositories if you're using, anyway, whatever. We'll just say annotate it with repository. You don't have to when it's a JPA repository, but always a good idea to do that. So if you're creating a service, a controller, or a repository, use the appropriate annotation at controller, at service, at repository. Just so it can be managed by Spring. That's the whole point. That's why we do it. Spring, if you don't do that, Spring doesn't know how to wire it all in and do its springy magic. So feature service, this is going to be, what is this? This is essentially, well, this is a save, but we'll have this, we'll call it create, we'll have a create feature method. Okay, public create feature method, and it will take in a product ID. Okay, and essentially this is where our code will reside, and this should return something, right? This should return a feature once we've finished creating it. So really the code I started to write in here should be moved into the service. That's the whole point of a service, right? So let me cut this out. Let me paste it into the service. Okay, and then I will make a call to this. So I will auto wire in our service. So feature service is the object I just created. Call it feature service. And Control-Shift-O to automatically import stuff. And then I can do feature service dot create feature, because that's the method I literally just created, and pass in the product ID. Okay, and there you go. So that way I'm grabbing and pulling out my my logic here, and I'm taking it out of the controller and putting it into the service, because you shouldn't have a whole lot of code in your controllers. That shows bad design if you do that. Let's see what's going on here. Oh, I need to save this over here to have it be happy over here, I think. There we go. So, okay, how do we do this? Well, we need to load the product from the database. If we want to set the product, we don't set the product ID, we set the full product object. So how do we get the product object? We load it from the database. So how do we load it from the database? We use the repository. We have a product repository, right? Product repo is what I'll call it. Control-Shift-O to import everything. So product repo has a find by ID method. What's the ID that we're using to find by? I'm using product ID. So this find by ID returns an optional product, okay? So it returns optional product. Product, I'll call this product OPT because it's optional. Why is it optional? Well, there might not be a product with that ID. What if you pass an ID that doesn't exist? That's why it's optional. It should return a product from the database unless you pass in the wrong ID, and then it won't, right? So this just forces you to handle the case where it returns nothing. So basically you say if product OPT is present, right? If we have a product, then we can go and do something with it, right? So you can say product OPT dot get the product from the database, and I'll assign that to a variable called product equals blah. And then essentially I'm going to take this code that I have down here and move it up. Move it up into here, because now I can set the product onto my feature that I'm creating up here, right? We've loaded the product from the database. Now we can set it into our feature. And because it's a bi-directional relationship, product points to feature and feature points to product, we need to set the other side of the relationship as well. So in other words, the product dot get features, because it's a set of features, it's a bunch of features, dot add the feature that we were creating, right? So feature has a product set into it, and a product has a feature set into it. This is just how you do it. It's a bi-directional relationship. And for now, let's just do that. Let's just set the relationship. Let's not set anything else, because I don't think we can really. The status, all right, the status, we could maybe set it, because that's, you know, a pending or something, you know, pending review. We have these, I think I created these, the concept of a status to show other users sort of where the feature request is in its sort of life cycle. If it's being reviewed, if it's been approved and pending release, if it's got, you know, dev in progress. That's sort of the point of the feature, to give some idea of where it is in the process for the users. The title, we don't know. The description, we don't know. That's going to be set by the person who's creating the feature request. Cool. That's all we can do for now. And then we need to save. Okay? I know I'm going long on time. This is always what happens with me. So now we need to save, right? So we need to do we need to have a repository to save it. We don't have a feature repository yet to save the feature that we're trying to save. So let's create one. New interface feature repository that will extend a JPA repository, just like we have done with the other two repositories. This is identical code. The only difference is this one leverages a feature, and the ID type is long, just like the other ones, but the only difference is this one uses a feature. I've already gone over this before, so this is, should hopefully just be a review, but we've done this in the past with other repositories, like the product repository extends JPA, and if you like, you can define some custom stuff. But out of the box, this blank interface here, which seems blank, actually gives us a whole bunch of CRUD. So the create, read, update, delete statements out of the box. It's really nice. So now I can auto-wire that in. Auto-wired private feature repository, feature repo. Okay. And if I was good, I would have labeled it with repository. But again, like I said, you don't actually have to do that. So anyway, that's because I was using, I'm extending JPA repository. It knows that it should be managed by Spring. But anyway, you could put that in there too. It's a bit redundant, but so be it. Okay, cool. So we have we brought in our feature repo. So now we can say feature repo dot, look at all the cool stuff we can do, right? We didn't write any code and we can still do it. Dot save feature. Cool. So let me do, sorry, my Slack was going off. Okay. So feature repo.save, cool. Now we've saved the feature, and hopefully at this point it should go into the database. So we should return feature repo.save, because feature repo.save returns a feature, right? Object, which is what this method should return, right? And in the, I guess we can return feature here as well. It'll just return a blank empty feature, because at this point, if it doesn't go in here, it's not going to do anything. It's just going to return an empty feature. I'm not sure if that's the way to go yet, but that's just what I'll do because we don't have much time left in this video. I'm already over time. So cool. Let's go back to our, where is it? Product. No, it was the feature repository or feature controller. Here it is. It's where we called our create feature. And now we can actually test this code out, right? So how do we test this? Well, actually, I guess I should go to the next video for that, because this is now going to require me to have an HTML view where we can click on a button to say create a feature, and that's going to send a post request to this endpoint that we've created here, and then it's going to execute our code and so on and so forth. So that's a bit, it's a bit too much to just tack on to the end of this video, because it'll probably take me another 5-10 minutes. So we'll pause here, and in the next video, in the next lesson, I will do just that. I will go and create the UI with a button to, as a user, create a feature request, and then we will go from there. Okay? Looking forward to seeing you guys in the next one. Take care of yourselves. Happy learning. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you enjoy this kind of content, and even give a like or a dislike if you didn't like the video. That's cool too. I very much appreciate it. Again, if you're watching on YouTube. If you're not watching on YouTube, hey, keep on enjoying these videos. Cool? Take care of yourself. Happy learning. Bye for now.